All right. Well, everybody's asking today, Speaker Kevin McCarthy, are you going to get a second date with President Biden? Maybe we'll learn about that tonight, maybe not. Anyway, we are honored. Louisiana Congressman Steve Scalise, House Majority Leader, and New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik, House GOP Conference Chair. You're both terrific to do this. I am most grateful. Elise, let me begin with you. You think they'll go out on a second date, maybe a drive-in movie, the local diner, or maybe he won't call again?
Well, first of all, Joe Biden has to negotiate with House Republicans. The American people sent a message this past election cycle, and it was the status quo is not working. Unfortunately, tonight, Larry, I think we will hear from Joe Biden doubling down on his failed far-left tax and spend policies. But House Republicans will advocate to bring our budget back towards balance. It is a win, the fact that Kevin McCarthy began the negotiations with the president, because remember, it was only 2 weeks ago this White House said they didn't even want to negotiate. We are negotiating on behalf of the American people to find common sense, sensible savings to save this country. Our debt is a catastrophe, and we're saddling future generations. You know,
Steve Scalise, I'm just going to guess, but if I had to guess, Joe Biden tonight is going to tell us just how well his policies have succeeded. He's going to talk about his economy. Inflation's coming down, jobs are going up, stick with me, more of the same. What do you think about that? And how will that influence this negotiations or the potential negotiations?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if President Biden continued this parallel universe. It seems like, he's living in the swamp and he thinks that that's how the rest of the country is. He will not acknowledge that it's his policies that have crushed hardworking families. The lower and middle income families of this nation are getting destroyed by President Biden's policies. And you've talked about it a lot. What he's done to energy policy, crushing American energy, that's raising costs for families. Not just, by the way, 40% more they're paying at the pump. They're also paying more every month when they pay their electricity bill. At the grocery store, they're paying dramatically more. All of this is hitting those families, and Joe Biden's answer is more taxes, more government, doubling the size of the IRS, not to go after millionaires and billionaires, which he'll talk about tonight. That's code for every low-income family, a single mom working 2 shifts at a restaurant is who he's sicking the IRS on. And we, by the way, tried to prevent that, and Joe Biden didn't want us to stop his IRS agents from going after those lower-income families. Congressional Budget Office even confirmed that's who he's going to be hitting with his policies. But tonight he'll only talk about the rich when he's really sticking it to the lower and middle income families.
It's interesting. Cost of living has gone up 14% in his first 2 years. A friend of mine, economist, pointed out that is the most rapid increase in the cost of living since Jimmy Carter, which is a long time ago. It is 40 years ago plus. You wouldn't know that to listen to the president. And I understand he's going to try to play a political game, and he's going to have a lot of what I'll call untruths. But the reality is real wages are falling because the cost of living is rising, and that's the soft underbelly of his whole program.
Absolutely, Larry. And I will tell you, the American people are smart. They face this every single week when it comes to balancing their own budgets. They see those grocery prices continue to go up. They see our shelves empty when it comes to baby formula, which is still not available. So we still have this ongoing supply chain crisis. You pointed out Jimmy Carter. We have a whole generation of young families. I was born in 1984. This is the highest rate of inflation in my lifetime.
I should tell you, do you know who Jimmy Carter was?
I read about it in the history books. We know the policies were bad, and now Democrats are doubling down, moving back to that era.
And shamelessly, there seems no hope that Biden and his, we were talking about John Kerry negotiating climate with the Chinese communists. Still, where's the permitting bill we heard about from Joe Manchin and others? It's still, we're fighting a war against fossil fuels. Still, while China and India go hog wild. I just don't get this.
Yeah, the American people do get this, and that's really the contrast. If you look at what Joe Biden's done, he's against fossil fuels, but not all. He's against American fossil fuels. Wow. He greenlighted the pipeline in Russia while he killed the pipeline between Canada and the United States. He begs Russia for more oil while he shuts down oil in America. And then he sends John Kerry out around the world. By the way, flying around on private jets, he and Al Gore go to Davos. What's the carbon footprint, Larry, of that trip to Davos, where all these leftist elites from all over the world fly their private jets to Davos and then preach to everybody else how they need to wreck their lifestyles and wreck their economies and drive around in an electric vehicle with 3 masks on by themselves. This is what people are fed up with. The American people do get it. Joe Biden doesn't. He thinks he can just say tonight everything's great, everybody's doing fine. The American people know better, and they know Joe Biden's the reason that they're struggling.
I mean, there's just no talk in that whole party about any fossil fuel reform or permitting reform, and it's a tragedy. Now, Lee Stefanik, I've got one here. Congress waking up to communist Chinese purchases of American farmland. Curbs should be placed on China, Russia, Iran, and North Korea via a bill pressed by Elise Stefanik of New York.
House Republicans are strong when it comes to countering communist China. We are seeing from Joe Biden weakness. Just look at his abysmal mishandling of the communist Chinese spy balloon. When it comes to Chinese investment in agricultural land, we need to do everything we can to stop that, to protect our agricultural resources here, to protect our food supply chain, Larry. Food security is national security. So if I've introduced legislation, I'm working with colleagues in the House to ensure that China cannot make those investments, to take our agricultural land out of U.S. hands. They're also investing in ag businesses, and that supply chain is so important. I'm proud to represent upstate farmers. You talk to the agricultural community, this is one of their top concerns, and this falls into our theme as House Republicans as part of our agenda to hold China accountable.
Right. I mean, part of this is about the Chinese. We've had Kevin Cramer on talking about this before. Kevin Cramer and John Hoeven basically talked their constituents in North Dakota out of this Chinese farming purchase because it was so near the Grand Forks military base. And in general, you know, the Chinese balloon story, 15 seconds.
Well, how crazy that North Dakota needed to use local zoning to block it because Joe Biden was going to let it happen. We got to stand up to China.